Hey everybody, how's it going? Today I wanted to go on the live stream for just a moment and actually talk to you guys a little bit about tithing and money in the Bible. I actually have some friends coming over from a ministry based out of Maryland, and today we're going to be shooting some videos kind of around this area of money and the Bible. Why do we tithe? Why should we? All these different kinds of things. And I thought that before I started the video with them, that I would jump on the live stream and chat with you guys and kind of hear your guys' thoughts. So this video is all about tithe. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. If you are watching with me live as we're going through the live stream right now, good to see you guys all here. If you're watching, let me know in the chat below where you are watching this video from. And I'm actually really curious to know, what are your guys' views on tithing? Do you guys tithe? Is this something that is of importance to you? Do you give money to your church if you don't tithe? And how much? Do you have like a system that's set up? Kind of what is your process of when it comes to finances and money and all that kind of good stuff? I'm really interested in knowing. Let me know down in the live stream. So to kind of start off, I wanted to share with you guys a story that happened with a friend of mine, several years ago. We were at a Chipotle. I was with a friend of mine by the name of Kyle, and we were getting some Chipotle, and he was like really kind because I hadn't seen him in quite some time. He's like, you know what, Justin? Let me get you this time. Let me grab your meal. And I was like, all right, cool. Why not? So I really went all out. I got, a burrito with extra beans, extra guacamole, got chips, salsa, a drink, everything, right? And so I am, really just enjoying myself. I'm getting as much food as I possibly can. And he pays the bill, and we go sit down and we eat, and we're catching up, and we're hanging out, and we're just having a good time. And in the middle of our conversation, we're just catching up over good times and stuff like that. I see his little skinny hand kind of reaching out towards my food. And generally speaking, I'm not the kind of guy that likes to share food. Most people, I think most guys in particular, don't really enjoy sharing food all that much. And as such, my kind of like gut response, my visceral response is to be like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you gonna take my food? And then I remembered why it was that I was in this meal. It was because Kyle was gracious enough to buy my meal. And so the way I ended up thinking about this later, of course I let him share food and all that kind of stuff, but it made me think later on, like, how selfish of a person would I have to be when the person buys me a meal and then asks to share a couple chips or some guac or whatever the case is, and I were gonna be saying no. Like, how selfish would I have had to been in that moment? And it made me think a lot about tithing when it comes to the Bible, because the Bible talks a lot about how everything on this earth is God's. Everything. The Bible talks about, like, the cattle on 1,000 hills are the Lord. And if that's the case, if everything is God's, then nothing really is mine. And this is kind of where this kind of resistance towards tithing and giving money, it kind of feels bad inwardly, right? It's like, okay, God, why do you need my money, right? I work hard, I work long hours, I'm already struggling to make ends meet. So why is it that you need my money? And that's how we view it. It's not God's money, it's my money. But if what the Bible's saying is true, it's all money is God's money. Everything is God's money. He is allowing us to have stewardship over it. He's allowing us to kind of have control over money for our own good. And all he's asking is that you share a little bit. Much like my friend who buys me Chipotle and asks for a chip. And so I was thinking about this. It's like, you know what? Giving whether you consider it tithe or not, or you just consider it stewardship or just generosity principles in general, I think this is something that is very important for us as believers. I wanted to share a couple of verses with you guys that I was thinking of when I came up with this subject. And so here's a couple of verses. This is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 16 to 18 right here. It says, "He gave you manna to eat in the wilderness, something your ancestors had never known, to humble and test you so that in the end it might go well with you. You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to his ancestors as it is today. So what this verse is saying is, as much as we might be tempted to believe, like, listen, I worked hard, I created this wealth, I have my own money, you know, like, and we have this kind of like self-made mentality. God is simply saying, no. That's never been the case. You didn't earn this money yourself in a certain respect, right? He says, remember the Lord God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. In other words, the very fact that you have breath and you have strength, the very fact that you have a job and that you can earn income, that is actually a gift from God. And so this is something that we need to be keeping in mind, that yes, while you have worked hard for your money, I know you have, I work hard for my money as well, we have to ultimately remember it's all God's money in the end. He's asking for a portion, and he's the one that gives us the ability to produce wealth in the first case. So I want to hear from you guys what you think about finances, what do you think about tithe, what do you think about all of these different kinds of things. Let me know in the live chat. I already got a question coming through from Fallen Angel, who says this right here. Fallen Angel says, what happens if you see a church not using the money the way that they need to use it, but a church on event, then rather having the people spend the money? Okay, so the question is basically, what do you do when someone is mismanaging money? Okay, and I want you to think about this, because this is actually a question that I wrestle with for myself. This is literally something that I'm thinking about on a maybe not like regular basis, but this is something that I wrestle with when it comes to generosity and giving a tithe and giving money and things like that. For me, the way I like to think about it, I remember having someone challenge me on this, sharing with me a thought. Who was the disciple that betrayed Jesus? Do you remember? There were the 12 disciples. There was one disciple that betrayed Jesus. That was Judas. And what was Judas's job? Out of the 12 disciples, he was actually the one that managed the money. He was the person that managed the finances. And so when you think about this, even at the very beginning, there was a lot of the potential for finances to be misused, to be abused, and even for it to be handled by people of shady character. And so I want to think about this. If Jesus was on this earth today, would I be willing to support his ministry? And using the excuse, oh, a church isn't using the money right, that may not be the best excuse. Now, I'm not trying to say that you should give money to a church that is clearly abusing the money that they have been given. If that's the case, you know, like I saw an article not too long ago about a pastor who's trying to buy like a $59 million private jet. Like, I think that's an abuse of power. I would say don't give your money or your tithe or your offerings. Don't be generous to that church. Maybe find a different church. Maybe find a different ministry that you feel is actually going to be doing God's work. Find a ministry that you support. You know, maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a YouTube channel like this one. Shout outs to my Patreon members who are supporting this channel. Link below. Maybe it's a pastor that you believe in, or missionaries that you know that are going abroad and serving the world. I would challenge you not to allow the experience of one bad church to cause you to not want to do your duty as a follower of God. I want to challenge you to still be generous, to still be willing to give and trust that God has a plan with everything else that's going on. And so that's kind of my opinion. Really great question though, Fallen Angel. I'd love to know if there's any other follow-up that you have. Keyblade Zenmis says, I'm literally driving to the bank right now. There you go. Good for you. Another verse that I wanted to share with you guys that I thought that was pretty interesting. Got to pull up my notes right here. Excuse me. Another verse that I thought that was pretty interesting to share is Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 9 and 10. Proverbs 3 verses 9 and 10. This is what the Bible says. It says, honor the Lord with your wealth. Okay, check that out. The Bible's saying that we should honor God with our wealth, with the first fruit of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Here's kind of a fun fact about tithe. Back in the day, tithe actually did not refer to money, because this was in a kind of a culture where giving money wasn't really how they did it. It was a bartering system where you would trade a goat, for a sheep, or you would trade clothing in exchange for some produce or something along those lines. And it was more of a trade-based system. And so you measured wealth not in like coins or money as much as you did in how much livestock, how much grain did you harvest, how much wine did you have, how much food did you have, things along those lines. And what the Bible is saying right here, it says, honor God with your wealth, with all of the first fruits of your crops. And so what would happen back in those days is, say I'm going to go and harvest, a field of wheat. What the first fruits were literally the first crop from that field. You would cut that out, and then you would literally bring that crop, or if you had like say a pack of cows, or what do you call a herd of cows, and they started having children, you would take the first cow or the first sheep, you bring it to the temple, and you would offer it to the Levites, offer it as a sacrifice to God, and saying, listen, God, I recognize that you are the one who has given me this wealth. You are the one that has given me the ability to have this blessing. And so I want to give this back to you as a way for me to say thank you, as a way for me to honor you with my wealth. And the promise there in verse 10 is really powerful. Then your barns will be overflowing. Your vats will brim over with new wine. In other words, when we are generous, when we are faithful in giving to God what he's asked of us to give, God blesses us. God gives back to us even more. I remember hearing a pastor once say, you cannot outgive God. I think that is pretty amazing. You cannot outgive God. You can give and give and give. And what the Bible is saying is that as you are faithful in giving to God, he gives to you. Now, I'm not trying to say this is not prosperity gospel stuff, right? I don't believe in this, God's going to make you wealthy and he's going to give you a mansion and he's going to give you like a Lamborghini and all this kind of stuff that you might see of televangelists online. I'm not trying to go to that extreme, but I'm also trying to say that we're not going to go to the other extreme, just simply saying, then it's all my money. I have no need to give anything. There's no need to be generous or anything else like that. And so that's my perspective on that. Let's check out the live chat. By the way, if you're watching live with me right now, feel free to chime in this conversation. Let me know what you think in the live chat. We got Jairus Greenidge saying, but you're not giving money to God, you're giving it to the church. I understand giving offerings, but not tithes, because I shouldn't feel like you have to give 10% of your wages every single month if you can't. That is such a good point right there. A lot of people are really struggling. They're really hurting. And, it can be very difficult for them to be able to give money. And I get your point. I really do. I'm not trying to take away from that in the least bit, but I want to challenge you on this. Is that really true? If you're not giving money to God, you're giving it to the church. Yes, I completely agree with that. That is true, but that's still our duty. In the Old Testament, the reason why they had tithes is because when the Israelites went into the promised land, there were the 12 tribes, right? Out of the 12 tribes, 11 of them they divided up the land, and 11 of them got land. But there was one tribe that did not get any land. That was the Levite tribe. That was the people that were in charge. The Levites were in charge of managing the temple, ministering to the people on behalf of God. In other words, they were the tribe that was dedicated to doing ministry. And since they did not have any land, or they weren't given any wealth, the only way that they were able to sustain their livelihood, the only way that they were able to continue their ministry, was because the other 11 tribes tithed to the Levite tribe. In other words, the reason why they're able to do ministry was because of the faithfulness of God's people in supporting them. And so you're right, you're not giving money to actually God, you're giving money to the people that God has designated for ministry. And this is why tithing at a local church is still valuable, because that's how the minister gets paid. That's how they can actually support their family, and they can continue to provide for a future for their family and things along those lines. Education, food on the table, expenses, all these different kinds of things. And so it's true, you're not giving to God, you're giving it to the people that God has called into ministry. And so again, I want to challenge you on this this feeling like, oh, I don't feel like I should give 10% of my wages every month if it's hard for me to do so. Another thing that I want to throw at you in response to this comment is a text found in Mark chapter 12, and we'll pull it up on the screen right here. Good to see you, Joshua. Thanks for hanging out with me in the live chat. Good to see you. Mark chapter 12, verses 41 to 44. Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a few cents. Okay? She gave a tiny bit when you think about it compared to everyone else. You know, you can see that some of the wealthy people, they're probably dumping in like large loads of cash into the treasury. But Jesus notices not just the rich people giving a lot of money, right, who have the ability and have excess to give, but Jesus also notices the poor widow. Okay, this poor widow comes with 2 very small copper coins worth almost nothing. Then he says, calling on his disciples to him, Jesus said, notice this, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others." You see, they all gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. And so I want to challenge you again on this question. This was what the comment was. This is what the comment was saying in the live chat. What if you can't give 10% of your wages? What if you can't afford it? Well, look at the example of the widow. She literally didn't give 10%. She gave 100% of everything that she had. And this is not something that's unique. When we see Jesus talking about the rich young ruler, go and sell everything that you have, give it to the poor, then come and follow me, right? God could ask for 100%. He's not. He isn't right now. And I don't believe that this is what I'm not trying to tell you to do this. But what he is saying is that we should have this principle of generosity, of returning to God as a means of showing our gratitude. And so even in the New Testament, we see Jesus praising a woman giving all that she had. And so when I think to myself and when I hear people say, I can't afford to do it, I want to ask them, okay, then do we really take what Jesus says seriously here? Do we, or are we just trying to be selfish in how we approach things? So these are questions that I want to challenge you and I want to challenge myself with. So let's go ahead and look at the chat real quick. Cheyenne Johnson's got a question. And again, if you're watching live, feel free to ask any questions. Give me 1 second. Oh, I got to do this real quick. All right. Here's a question right here from Cheyenne Johnson. Is giving tithe just inclusive of your monthly paycheck or including tips as well, Cheyenne? Really good question. So again, when it comes to tithing, it was simply about your increase. So whatever did you gain from that last period since you've done it? Give me a second. Sorry, my dog is barking really loud. I had to ask Emily to get the dog. So the question is, giving tithe just inclusive of your monthly paycheck or including tips as well? So the way that I understand tithes is it's you give a tithe, you give 10% on what you see. There you go. Kayleen's showing dog emojis. It's an increase of whatever you've gained. So if you just have money that you've saved in the bank and you've already given tithe on it, and it's just money that you have, you're not required to pay tithe on that because you theoretically already given tithe on that. But if you have a new paycheck, whatever your increase is, and so I would say if you are a waiter, a waitress, it could be both your income as well as your tips. That would be what I would suggest. So good question, really good question. Enoki Jeffet, hi, is there any way I can use my tithe for aside from giving to the church? Yeah, that's a really good question. So a lot of people generally say that tithe should be given to the church, and then anything additional to the 10% you can give to ministries or anything else. I don't think that Jesus necessarily cares about how specifically you're doing it. Like if you have to give exactly to the penny to the church, and and if you give 1 penny less, and he's all like upset about you. I think it's more about the principle of generosity. Okay, it's not being stingy, not being selfish. Jesus talks a lot about the importance of taking care of the poor, of the widows, of supporting those that are in ministry. Like he talks a lot about this. He talks about how it's for where your treasure is, there your heart is also. In other words, the things that you spend money on, those are the things often that reflect what are important to you. Jesus is saying, put a priority on the things of God. Don't just only look after yourself. Of course, you have to be responsible, and you have to take care of yourself, and you have to take care of your family, and provide for those that are under your care. I'm not trying to do away with that. But what he is also saying is that money isn't what this world is all about. In today's society, the society that we live in today, it's that money is the end-all be-all, that money is everything. And I think that this is such a distracted way to live our life. Money is important, yes, for sure. But that's not the thing that we as Christians should really be focusing on. And being generous and being kind to other people, giving tithes and giving offerings to ministries and supporting the poor, these are ways for us to give to God and to demonstrate that, it's true that this world is not our home and that we want to give to God. So really, really great questions. Let's go ahead and look at the live stream. Check it out. Joel, thank you very much, buddy. Good to see you. Joel is a fellow YouTuber from Jamaica. Appreciate the comment. Your live stream's quality is super crisp. Thank you very much. Let's see right here. Nick, good point. I don't have a stable income, so I don't really know. He also says in the Netherlands, we don't have tithe, but what is a good amount to give to the church? Excuse me. Okay, so in the Netherlands, you don't have tithe, but what's a good amount to give to church? Okay, so kind of the beginning, starting point of this process is 10%. A tithe literally means tenth. Okay, that's what the word in the original language actually refers to and means. And so if you're gonna start with 10%. Anytime you get a paycheck, even if it's kind of sporadic and you only get a paycheck once a month or once every couple of months, start with 10%. Give 10% to a local church. If you don't have a local church, you can support a ministry. You can use it as a way to do ministry yourself, like give to the poor, things along those lines. Dedicate a 10% of your income towards doing God's business. Okay, so that's where you can start. If you want to do more, if you want to be even more generous, then you can do whatever God calls you to do. A lot of people will do 10% as far as like a tithe, and then maybe 5 to 10% as far as an offering on top. But again, that's up to you. It's not so much about the exact monetary amount. It's more so about the principle of giving and being generous. One thing that I thought about, especially when I was in like my early college stage, when I literally didn't have an income, I didn't have any money that I would make. How could I still be generous and kind of can go through the principles of being a generous and a good steward of my money, being a generous Christian in that respect? I didn't have money to give, right? But instead, what I did have is I did have time. People say things like time is money. And so I decided that I would try and tithe my time. So I want you to think about this. There are, 24 hours in a day times 7 days a week is 168, right? Times 10%. Okay, so what if you didn't tithe money because you don't have any money, right? But what if you tithe your time? Because time is money, right? What if you dedicated every single week 16.8 hours, because that's a tenth of the week. What if you dedicated 1/10 of your time towards ministry and serving God? What if you dedicated 1/10 of your time towards volunteering at your local church, okay? Volunteering at like a soup kitchen, engaging in your own ministry or doing something like that. What if your tithe wasn't so much about money, but was about your time? Because I want you to think about this. What does God care more about, right? What does God want really from you and from me? Does God really want your money? I mean, think about this. How crazy does this sound? Does God even really need your money? I mean, he's God, right? So why would he want your money? Why would he need your money? He doesn't. What he wants more than anything else is he wants your heart. And so if you can't give money, give your heart, give your time. Dedicate time to God, 1/10 of your time. So that would be something that I would suggest if you're unable to cut it financially. And so that's something that I think is really worthwhile. If you're in high school, if you're in college, if you're unemployed and you don't have the ability to earn an income, hey, check it out. Why don't you simply tithe your time? Let's see, Galactic Genesis, quick maths. I guess we know who liked math class in school. They're saying, actually what the story is, I have my computer right here, and so I can go to my calculator app and make me seem like I'm smarter than I really am. But yeah, I appreciate it. But let me know what you guys think, man. Let me know if you have any questions about tithe or money in the live chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm curious from you guys, how many of you guys do make it a practice of paying a tithe or supporting a ministry or something like that? How many of you guys, let me know in the comment section. Give me like a smiley face or something like that in the live chat if you pay your tithe. I'm curious to know how many of you guys do it. Nick is asking me, is reading the Bible also part of tithe? No, I don't think, Nick, that is part of giving tithe. I think that's just part of our spiritual duties, spiritual disciplines. I would look at more of your service as a tithing of your time. That would be kind of the way that I would approach it. Cheyenne's giving me a smiley face. Good. Awesome. Very cool. Mauricio as well. Jairus says, I don't. I'm 14. Totally understand. When you're 14, you don't have a lot of money. I get it. It's no big deal. Your job really is to do a good job at school and things along those lines. Here's a question coming in from Mauricio Rodriguez. Is it okay to be wealthy? Yeah, absolutely. It is totally okay to be wealthy. Now, there are a lot of counsel on maybe the potential challenges and dangers of being a wealthy individual. Jesus talked about how it is difficult for a rich man to enter the kingdom. And I think what he's saying here, not that if you have money, then automatically like God doesn't love you, or God doesn't like you, or anything else like that. Far from that, obviously. But the point is that, listen, when you have a lot of money, it's easy to get distracted by money. You might know people, have seen people who are super wealthy, that like that's all that they can think about is how do I protect my wealth? How do I get more money? And as a result, they may not enjoy life. They may not really care about the people around them. And so there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. You just need to be careful with it. Money is what I like to call amoral. It's not moral. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It all depends. It's like a knife. A knife is not inherently bad or wicked or evil. A knife can be a bad thing if you're a bad person and you intend to use it poorly. But a knife can also be a positive thing, in the hands of a surgeon, right? Who's using the scalpel to cut, to heal, right? It can be a positive thing. And the same thing is true about money. Money can actually be used for good. Money can also be used for bad. I want you to think about it this way. If all Christians basically said, I will never be rich, I will not gain any money, guess who has all the money in the world as a result? People who aren't following God, the wicked. People who don't care about building up the kingdom of God. They will have all the money. They will be able to make all the rules and influence people, and that could be a very poor place for us to live. And so, no, I don't believe that it's a wrong thing to have money or to pursue money. But I want to make sure that we are not being tied to like having this unhealthy relationship with money. We need to be willing to use money in the way that God wants us to. And I think that this is why tithing is so important. It helps kind of keep our priorities in check. Joel has got a really good point. I love it, Joel. It's not how much you give, it's the state of the heart that you're giving with. Awesome, really good point. Joshua put that money is the root of all evil. That's actually something I've heard a lot, but the text actually doesn't say that. The Bible says that the love of money is the root of all evil. I'll show you guys right here. It's found in 1 Timothy, pulling it up right here. 6, and let's go right here in verse 10. Check this out. This is an important distinction for us to recognize. 1 Timothy 6 verse 10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. In other words, Timothy is saying right here, the love of money, this unhealthy relationship with money, this is what is bad. When we are willing to go so far that we're willing to disregard God, disregard his principles, disregard other people, and to treat people unjustly, when money matters so much and we love it so much, this is oftentimes what motivates people to live wicked lives. And so it's not bad to be rich or to desire to be rich, but when you love money in an unhealthy way, that is where the problem is. So really solid points there. Good questions. I love this. And we actually got that right there in the chat. Quite Mike saying the love of money is the root of all evil is what the Bible says. However, money is not evil. Absolutely. Really love that. Very, very, very good points. Naughty internet person. Love that screen name, by the way. Says, yeah, better those who will use money well having money than not. Absolutely. When you have the option, you have A or B. You have money in the hands of God's people or money in the hands of the wicked. What do you think is better for society? When God's people have money, they're able to use the money to support the poor, right? To be able to help people who need help. And whereas wicked people get the money, it's all about selfishness, and the world becomes a worse and a worse place. So really good points right there. Galactic Genesis, I'm about to cash my first paycheck. Should I start tithing now? Yes, absolutely. Congratulations on your first paycheck, dude. That is awesome. Congratulations. That's an exciting time. I know that you worked hard for that paycheck. You should be very proud about yourself. That's a big first step. Yeah, I would absolutely suggest that you start today. It's so much easier to be faithful when you have a track record of being faithful. And so if you start at the very beginning saying, God, you know what? I'm so grateful for the money that I have, that you've given me the ability to produce. For those of you guys that are joining us earlier, you have to watch the beginning of the live stream. There's a great verse in which the Bible basically says, you didn't earn this money yourself. God gave you the ability to earn this money. And if you can say from the very beginning, I recognize this and I want to honor you, God, with even my first paycheck, I think that's a really great place to start. Galactic Genesis, send a tithe or give an offering to your local church. Give it to a ministry you support. If you want to, you can become a patron of this channel. There's a link below. If this ministry has blessed you and helped you grow closer to God, that's something that you can do as well. Really great questions. Here's a question. When do you start paying tithes? You start paying tithes anytime that you have additional income, okay? Anytime that you have a paycheck or something along those lines, that's when you start tithing. It's not about what you already have. It's anytime you get something in addition to what you presently have. So that's the way that I understand tithes to be. Good points. Good points. All right, guys, I'm actually going to have to run pretty soon. I told you guys that the reason why I wanted to talk about this subject is because I'm actually having some guests come from the East Coast, and we're going to be shooting a video on this subject for their ministry. And so I really appreciate all of you guys' thoughts. Of course, let me know if you have any other questions or video subjects or ideas. Let me know in the comments below as you're watching this video if there's anything else that you guys would like to talk about in the future. But until next time, I have a video coming out on Thursday that I think you guys are really going to be enjoying. It's a video all about gossip and how gossip can really be an evil and wicked thing and what the Bible has to say about this and what is kind of the ways that we should be approaching this. So I'm sorry that I have to cut the live stream short. I know that there were a lot of questions that were still out there, some important questions. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on the bell notifications. That way the next time I do another live stream, I can answer your questions. I'm so sorry that I couldn't get to all of them. I do really have to run. That phone call you heard me get was the people saying that they are here. So I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you very much for watching the channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend so they can get their answers or their questions answered about the money and tithing according to the Bible and all these different kinds of things. I'll talk to you guys soon. Till next time, as I like to say, I'm that Christian vlogger. I want to encourage you to experience faith in the first person. Oh shoot, I gotta do a shout out. Toya, thank you very much for the super chat. You did it at the very, like literally I was about to end the live stream You got it in. Toya, thank you very much. You've been very kind, very generous. $9.99 for super chat. She says, your video, should Christians join the military, has really been helping me out with some important decisions I need to make in my life. Thanks for this channel. God bless. Toya, I appreciate it. I know that you've been with me since the very beginning. A couple of years ago, I've always noticed your comments anytime you respond to a video, and I really appreciate the generosity and the support that you have. I pray that God will continue to bless you in every step that you take moving forward. All right, guys, I really have to run. I don't mean to be rude and to cut everything off right away, but I do have to go. I'll talk to you guys soon. Again, if you have any questions, hit me up on Instagram. I'd love to talk to you guys there. All right, God bless.